LinkedIn, we welcome you on YouTube. Hello.
Hi everyone, it's so nice to see you again with us. Please write us a little message about you. We want to hear about you and know you. What do you do? Where do you live? And what's your name, of course? And what's your job? So we can see who is listening to us and discuss the things that are crucial for everyone, for us as specialists, and for you as a technician, for example, or a legal professional, or somebody else who is connected to privacy. Hi.
Hello, yes. Today we having a webinar on building a privacy program in a startup. We decided to take this topic because it's very important. Because a lot of startups who gain investments try to build a really great product to make the world better, of course. But on the other hand, they do not pay much attention to GDPR and privacy. There are a lot of queries like, okay, we'll make some kind of privacy policy and cookie policy, we'll put it on site, and that will be enough. On the other hand, some people want something like, okay, yes, we need GDPR, just do GDPR for us, and that's okay, that's so good. Let's go and do it. But just we don't want to know anything, but just do GDPR for us. And that's not an approach that's not the way it should be, because GDPR compliance or privacy program, if you take it more globally in a startup, is all about the mindset, the culture of the team regarding working with personal data. So that even in a startup, even on early stages or on more later stages, you have to think about privacy. So that we will talk about how to build a privacy program in a startup today. Okay, so let's move on.
Yep. There are two words about us. Who is with you today? It's me, of course, Katerina. I'm working as a head of privacy and data compliance team here in Legal IT Group. And here's Anton with me. Anton, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I also work in Legal IT Group as managing partner. We do a lot of good things like privacy, compliance programs, and so on. And today we will be glad to share our knowledge and our expertise with you, actually. So if you are also here watching us, you can tell in the chat who you are and what do you do. It will be really awesome. Okay, let's move.
Yep. So there are a couple of words about the primary goal why we have all gathered today, because we have opened a donation line that we collect some money for the children staying in Smerichka. It's a place where the children evacuated from Kharkiv are right now, and people take care of them. So you can see all the information below. Following the link, legalitygroup.com and charity. So there are some funds we already raised. There are some times we already spent and gave to the children that are presently in Smerichka. So if you can if you can share this donation, or if you can donate yourself, please do it. So we will help the children that have been wounded by this war. Okay.
Yeah, so actually, there are kids there in a house, in some kind of institution. They need all that stuff, food, pampers, some chairs, some beds, and so on. There are a lot of them there, actually. And we already raised about $3,000 and $500, but we need more. The goal is to raise $10,000, and most of these funds were raised actually during such webinars from people from UK, from USA, from Netherlands, and we are thankful to them. All this money are transferred to our account. Then we transfer them to our volunteer, who actually is at the place, and she actually buys all that stuff and delivers it to the children. So everything is like being doing in order to help kids and being doing effective. So that if you want to donate to help children in Ukraine that suffer from war, it's your chance to do it. Do it now. Why not?
Yes. We'll be very, very happy to hear about your sharing this page, for example. So let's back to business, I guess. We will
Mhm.
start with our agenda. We'll talk a little bit about startup and privacy. Is there a place for data protection during the initial stage? So when you're only making your first product, for example, and why you should think about privacy at this stage, of course. And the next question that we will cover is actually covering the steps to build a company-wide privacy program. So we'll learn a little bit more about the data privacy and how you can contribute to the building of your overall data protection mindset in your company. Let's start with a
Sounds interesting.
crucial. Let's start with a crucial question: is there a place for data protection during the initial stage? What do you think, Anton?
Of course, there is, because if you're talking about startups, most of startups are data-based startups actually, never, and it doesn't matter in what niche actually they're operating. Okay, you're doing some medical instruments or medical tech decision, you work with medical data. Okay, you're doing some advertisement, I don't know, CRM program, and you're working with customers, data of your customers. You're doing any startup like even in privacy tech, you're doing a startup, you're working with data of your clients and data of their users, for example, and so on. So that when you are creating the MVP, when you are developing the concept, the model, the business model, you have to think of privacy because the data is, as they say, it's a new oil, and actually this is a building material. This is the blood of your business, because when we talk about startups, about modern companies, they all based on data. That is, they are data-driven companies. So that you have to understand what data do you have and what you will do with it. And because of that, you will be able to plan actually and work with it effectively. And when we talk about personal data, there are different requirements to do different processes with it all over the world, so that you have to think of them when you are on the initial stage as well.
Well, yeah, I have to add a little bit because okay, GDPR is very, very long and very, very detailed in terms of the requirements to the business. Meanwhile, it's still a pretty general framework that will be actually complemented with other legislation like Data Act, maybe some national laws, of course, maybe some new regulations and directives that are issued by the European Union, of course, that are actually dealing with data. For example, question of exchanging data banks, maybe it's like an idea that can be pursued by the regulator. So in this case, of course, when you are building your new product, when you are building your new software piece, or when you may be building a new website, anything that actually connects with processing personal data, you have to think about data protection by design, of course. And any MVP includes at least 4 crucial points, because you will have to dedicate some money, dedicate some resource, some time, for example, to require a specific talent that can help you with this data protection software, for example. And these points include data protection by design, data protection by default, requirement of the Article 25 of the GDPR, you can check if you want. And of course, security-centered approach to the software development, because Article 32 of the GDPR requires you to promise and to adhere to your promise to secure any data that you process, or secure any access to the data that you have as a software developer, a software maintenance, of course. And in general, it's a privacy-friendly approach to the process development, because every process, every piece of communication between your company and your clients or your business partners has to address the topic of data protection at some point, being its DPA, data processing agreement, being its questionnaires, being its dedicating some time and resource to find an ideal consent tool for both of you. It's always a matter that you have to discuss, and you must be prepared. So there are, of course, crucial points that you have to address prior you are building your marketing, you're building and marketing your product, for example.
Mm.
And of course, there are some other advantages to become compliant with data protection law, isn't it, Anton?
Of course, because if you will not be able to demonstrate your compliance to your customers may leave actually. That's the point. So when you actually start when you when you're at the beginning. For example, the starter comes to us and tells, "Okay, I'm in the initial stage, and I want to understand what to do with GDPR. Give me GDPR compliance now." Okay, good. But it's impossible to do so because there are stages of GDPR compliance, and GDPR compliance is rather the way it's the way you do things, the way you treat the data, the way you work with it, the way you protected it in real time, all the time. That is the GDPR compliance is not the moment like you gain it. Okay, now I'm in compliance. Okay, let's forget about it. No, it's the way of life actually. So that what I want to say that at the very beginning, it's very important to understand one crucial thing that data flows that you have and you may have within your startup are regulated by different regulations. And your first task when you only start your business is to understand what data flows you have and draw with lawyers, for example, a data flow map. Because if you will not understand the data you have, you will be first of all you will not be able to understand and to run your business effectively, and second you will not understand what data you have and how to protect it. So when you're talking about building data flow map, Katrina, what we have to think of for the first point?
We can talk a little bit about it a little bit later, but I would
Mm,
start with making an inventory of all data points and all data sources that your company has. So being having a website, having an app, having a product, having everything, even offline events, usually entails collection of some personal data of your leads, for example, of your business partners, of your employees, of your new contacts, of your new friends that you could make to and try to actually negotiate a new marketing idea, for example, with. All the people have some personal data that you will be bound to process just to make your business work. And in this case, you should remember that you have to make an inventory of everything that you are processing, every data point, every data source, every employee data, everything that connects to the privacy and everything that connects to the data protection, especially. You have to collect, understand what you have and what you control, and then, of course, write down the list you can later expand and just explain, for example, what is the purpose of this processing of this data item? What is the time that you will be processing it? What is the retention period, or in other words? Who you are sharing this data item with? What is the SaaS solutions that you use to process the data? Or maybe what is the contractor, outside contractor that you have hired just to process this, for example, this kind of data? To gather information and insights, for example. So, of course, when you're drafting a data map, you have to think about the inventory of all data points that you have or that you are planning to have, of course. Because you have to remember that in the terms of the GDPR, a company must be compliant with all the requirements of the GDPR, including Article 25, Article 32, and so on and so on, at all times. And of course, before you start to actually process personal data, sometimes it's just impossible because product can start working elsewhere, not in the European Union, but in a third country, for example. And then you decide to expand your company to the European Union market as well. And in this case, of course, you will have to think about it. For example, if you are planning to make your app or making your product worldwide sold, you have to think about data protection issues and compliance issues, of course, because they can actually save your legal costs in the future. So you won't have to redesign your application, your website, for example. You will avoid expenses on new marketing campaign or procuring new sales tag, for example, anything like this that's connected to processing personal data. And of course, when you are data protection law compliance, that can boost your marketing and sales pitch, especially if you are working in the area of advertisement, for example, in health, in communications, in, for example, in some B2C sales. markets, because people are actually worried about their data. They want to know that even if you are special, especially if you are a foreign company, you know what is the standard in the country where they live, because they have some expectation to their privacy and the level of processing of personal data, and you have to meet these expectations just to be actually a reliable source of service. So why not? You have to think about this at some point, and preferably when you can change anything just to make it to meet the requirements of the GDPR. So of course that inventory is a good start, because you will know what are you processing, what you can stop processing, and actually how to shape your future data processing processes and standards.
Yes, that's really so. And one more point is when we talk about startups, it's all about pitching, but it's all about meeting with investors. It's all about going to a conference and so on. And for example, we were on Web Summit, I don't know, last year or not 2 years ago. A lot of startups as well, a lot of pitches and so on. And the idea, what I'm trying to tell you is that investors actually ask you, okay, what about GDPR compliance? What about compliance of your data flows? Because different startups have different ideas. Sometimes it's face recognition moments. Sometimes it's marketplace of medical data. Sometimes it's something like that may sound really not good regarding personal data, but in case user is okay with it and gets the result, it's also good and can be in compliance in some way. So that when you are pitching to your investors, one of your slides may be about your GDPR compliance if you're a data-based company. And you may say that we already have implemented privacy by default and privacy by design by involvement a DPO, for example, or by involvement a privacy consultant. And we understand our data flows and we know how to move on. In this case, the investor will see that you are actually working with your data flows, not only personal data flows, but with your data, and you understand it, and you are in control of it. And that means that you are in control of your business, and you understand how to expand it and how to make it bigger, and it's really sustainable and good. And on the other hand, you will be able to demonstrate this GDPR compliance to users from Europe, for example, and to Data Protection Authority, which means that in the next round, it will be also nice to demonstrate to the investors that we were compliant from the very beginning, so that we are a good place to invest their money as well. That's really cool.
Yep, it's summarized just like that. Absolutely, exactly. So we decided that you want to start building your company-wide privacy program, for example. So you are in a tech business, you are a lawyer, or maybe you are a CTO, or maybe you are a CEO. For example, everyone, you have not heard about the data protection standard in the European Union, for example, but you decide that there are some steps that must be made to build the data protection program in your company, and you just don't know where to start. So where would we start, apart from the data item, of course?
Well, we have to understand what we do and what are our processes at all, for example, because if we don't know what we do, it's impossible to do something. But on the other hand, we have to, the first point is to actually, from my point of view, is to understand who will be in charge in the company, who will be the data champion, like who will be promoting all that stuff in the company, who will be responsible for this privacy by default and privacy by design implementation from the start. So you have to find a data champion. It can be you, of course, and you have to start the initiative to you have to come to your colleagues, you have to come to your partners and say that, guys, we have to be in compliance. We have to start doing it right now, because if you want, we will not be able to demonstrate it in the future. So that's the first point, is to understand that you actually need all that stuff, and it will benefit you. That's my point.
Well, yes, everything starts with the decision to start this program somehow. So you will find somebody who is responsible for planning, who is responsible for monitoring of the processes. Of course, you allocate some attention and time just so they will be able to do their work and, of course, work on the data privacy issues as well at the same time. And you have to self-study. So you are working on it right now when you are here with us, listen to our webinar to understand and educate yourself, because you have to understand what the privacy is, what the data protection is, what is the difference between them, what should you do as a company, for example, what should you do as a responsible person of the company, where should you start with everything that is on your plate, and of course, what is the personal data in itself, what does it mean, what does it cover, what does it encompass. So every time that you have to deal with some kind of data, some kind of information, you can actually understand whether it is a personal data and whether it has to be protected by the GDPR, for example. And the next step after that is to spread this respect, spread this interest in privacy protection among your closest, among your team members, among your employees, contractors, and everyone else you are working with. Because the ultimate goal of any business is to make their customer meet their needs, to understand that they have some kind of need, and they can receive a solution just to satisfy this need, and need to keep our private life, our personal data safe and secure and away from others is one of the biggest, because we see a lot of cyber incidents. We see a cyber war going on. We see everything else, so from stalking to doxing, that can be used against our client, for example, including with help of our product. And we have to understand that and mitigate this risk. So next thing that we have to think of is spreading the respect for human privacy and data protection law between our team members, because they will understand what they're working with and how can they help this overall data protection solutions that we are building, this overall privacy programs that we are building in company. And
Yes,
of
I agree
course,
with
next
that.
step is the gap assessment and data inventory, I guess.
Sure, because there is a great point. It's like privacy strategy of the company, and privacy strategy is some kind of strategy, some kind of plan that you actually need to implement in order to get compliance as you see it. And one of the points in this privacy strategy is first to understand what you have, to understand how your data flows will change during some time, how you plan to do it, and to understand what is the gap assessment, what steps do you have to do in order to become compliant with the current process, and what you will need to do in the future to to keep being in compliance if anything will change in your process as well. So that as a part of privacy strategy, you may have actually your business plan, because you may actually build your privacy strategy upon your business strategy, because and you can implement your privacy strategy in your business strategy. And on the other hand, when you do this privacy strategy, you have to have some specific aims as well. Because, for instance, you will see that for now we have a website. Let's start from something simple. We have a website, we have cookies, we have remarketing, okay, and we don't have any cookie banners. We don't tell our users about Facebook Pixel. We don't tell them how their data is collected and so on. Okay, so one of the part of your privacy strategy is to making your website GDPR compliant when we talk about front end, when we talk about interaction with users. And the more complex approach shall be making all your interaction with users privacy compliant, and that means that in your website you will need to have also the forms, the contacts, and the processes that will be actually built in your company. For example, when you will need to answer about for the data subject request and so on. It is all one of the same of one big situation you have in your company, because communication with users for the user starts, yes, with when he enters your website. But on the other end, there is a customer support manager or DPO or any other team player of your team that will actually write a response to him in case of his query. So that take it this process as a complex one and to try to implement it in the data strategy you have in the privacy strategy. And the website is only a little part of all this stuff, because also you will have the HR data, the data about your partners, and so on. So that you have to understand what data you have and what processes you do with it. And then within your privacy strategy, you will have to build the way for each of these clusters to be in compliance, to get the compliance in general.
So making your website compliant with the GDPR is only a tip of the iceberg, because there's only this is the only thing that the user can see on the first glance. But then when they start using this product, it's become evident whether you respect their privacy or not, because it's always embodied in small details, like some for example, some tips, some mandatory optional fields, the reaction of your customer care team, the work with your DPO, and so on and so on. Even the updates of the personal of the privacy policies that you have on your website signals whether you respect privacy and whether you actually address the this overall privacy respect respect for privacy in your company, and you promote it within the team, so they can think over every new product, every new issue, every new feature that they want to implement, just how it helps to preserve the privacy, for example, while achieving the business goal. It's important to remember. And of course, once you have this company-wide privacy program, it will affect everything, every detail of your service, from the software, your website, your application, even your social media presence, for example, your tone of voice that you use in the social media when you're promoting your service. And of course, supplier network. You will start to look for more reliable GDPR compliant partners, for example, or have some specific agreements or maybe some specific arrangements, just to make your processing more secure when you have to rely on less reliable supplier, for example. Everything, of course, will be actually put down on the paper. It will be embodied in the documentation, because you will have a lot of policies, a lot of procedures, a lot of guidelines for your team and for your contractors, for example. They have to learn, have to contribute to, of course, as a privacy champions and local privacy champions too. And they will have to actually have access to the documentation at any time of their processing, because you don't know when the event occurs, the employee or the contractor will understand that the process that they are doing actually right now, they want to implement right now, can violate the GDPR. And you want to hear about it before this violation has happened, because you can mitigate the risk and you can lessen the effects that can be actually produced by the violation of the GDPR. So, of course, this documentation, once it is actually drafted, it's adopted and spread among staff and contractors, it will work for your benefit, and it's remembered to know. But of course, this documentation has to be reenacted in the form of training. So what about trainings, Anton?
Well, trainings can be also, and they should be actually the part of your wide privacy program or your privacy strategy, because if your personnel, if your team don't understand what do they do with data, what data the company has concerning them and concerning users, they will not be able to effectively work with the data as it's prescribed by GDPR when we talk about security and technical organizational matters. So the trainings are really important. And from my point of view, as we do it in Legal IT Group, when we conduct different GDPR or GPD trainings for the staff of our clients, we in most cases do the trainings in two parts. First one is like general GDPR training, when we talk about the controller, the processor roles, the GDPR in general, the material scope, and so on, and the principles, of course. And on the second one, we talk about how the company works with the data, how the current company processes all that stuff. What role may the company have in different situations? Why they signed some papers? Actually, what papers the company signs with the contractors like DPAs and so on. So that when we talk about training, is also some kind of part that is really necessary. And for example, what we do, we provide online certifications for the contractors who are involved in privacy moments for our clients. For example, you have a developer or a designer or some other stuff that you have as contractors in your company, and we provided a training for them, and then we can do online testing. And in case of successful testing, they will have some kind of certificates, and the company will understand that they know the crucial points of GDPR and can effectively work within their GDPR compliance program. So that it's important, and it's really nice part of privacy program in a company. Another privacy point that we can discuss now is, for example, the FAQ on a website. For example, a company decides that they want to build a privacy as a culture, and they want to communicate with their customers, their users, in a plain language as it's prescribed by the GDPR, so that they decide to put some kind of, I don't know, 10 GDPR articles on their website telling why are we GDPR compliance, what is GDPR, what benefits you have when you work with us concerning GDPR, and so on, why your data is safe, all that moments. And in this case, as practice shows, these pages are visited really by a numerous number of users when we talk about big companies, and it actually helps the users to understand that their data is protected. Okay, company is worried about my data. They know what they do with data. And in this case, DPO actually receives not so many questions from the users. Then because users can find the answers actually on the website in a plain understandable language. So that is that can be one point of your big 10 or 12 point privacy strategy that you have in your startup.
And of course, it must be linked closely to the awareness and promotional events, because we remember that we have all the policies put in place. We have all the controls to monitor the compliance with the security, for example, requirements of the GDPR in place. We have everything done, but still we have new employees. We have employees that always are so overwhelmed with their work that they can just pursue the simplicity instead of privacy. And you have to actually to make them remember, or maybe ask them remember that privacy and data protection are important and have to be included in their work as well, especially for your new trainees, for your new employees, for new contractors as well, because it's always the matter of the culture and the matter of the details of a particular project that make this data protection actually viable, because there are two startups are always different, even if they pursue the same goal and they market the same service, because there are always different things behind the scenes. Like you have in different teams, you have different talent on board, you have different supply network, and everything impacts your data protection overall, data protection program. So you have to host these little events focused on awareness and promotion, and they must be rather positive than negative, because people want to know that they are contributing to something bigger, that they make this world as a more safe place, for example, that they prevent people from suffering from doxing or from suffering from stalking and everything else. That you want them to, that you want that your clients are actually very satisfied with your approach to their privacy that they have on your website, for example, or inside their product or app, everything that you've produced and offer them. And it always pays off in terms of greater greater connection with your client base, with your clients, with your employees, with your contractors, because you have to understand and you have to show that you respect not only your clients but your employees and contractors as well. Their personal data has to be an integral part of your privacy program, and it's important to know as well, of course.
Mhm.
So we have covered pretty much all the general stuff. Maybe we have to host some specific events that is focused on a particular sector, for example, or particular way of business. What do you think?
Well, the examples that I was just thinking of, most companies actually mix the data of about the users they have in order to gain some marketing aims. They can get more data from adding some or one piece of data to another data. Of course, if they have respective legislative points according to the GDPR, for example, a consent and so on. And when they do, they can actually pick some insights about the users and pick up some points that make users vulnerable. For example, they may pick a moment when the user is I don't know, desperate and in the situation that he can or she can actually make a decision that is not good for him or her, but because we know that moment we can make an offer for that user that may be not good for him or maybe less good that the one that we could make if we did not know about this point when he's vulnerable. And such practice is prohibited. And on the other hand, such practice may be actually built in the algorithms of the company. And for instance, someone can receive less good credit offer or less good job offer and so on. And such practice is prohibited. And we have to firstly communicate with the developers, communicate with the team that we cannot instruct actually our algorithms, our program to work that way, because programs and algorithms are written by, are developed by, are coded by people. So that when we talk about GDPR compliance programs, GDPR compliance, IE, machine learning stuff, and so on, we have to start from ourselves. We have to understand that we have to respect our clients, and then we have to tell that to our developers team and so on. So that it all starts with a human factor, and what's in our minds that can be implemented in algorithms and so on. So that we have to keep GDPR compliant points in our minds. That's what I want to tell.
Yep, it's a good conclusion. It's a good summing up of everything that we were talking about today. So we are waiting for your questions. Maybe you have some. You can write them in chat here on LinkedIn or YouTube. We are waiting like 1-2 minutes before we actually closing of this event. And of course, just to remember that if you have any questions that you are too shy to ask in the chat, you can write us an email. For example, you can see our contacts in here in this group. You can actually subscribe to our YouTube channel to see other webinars, of course, to watch other webinars and get notified of them when they are introduced. And of course, you can follow us in other social media. We will be very happy to have you on board. So, do you have any questions? Right,
Okay, and
Vils?
while we're waiting, actually, if you will need us to help you building your privacy program in a startup or in a company, we will be glad to help. You can also write us a message as well. If you will want to maybe to have us as partners, or if you wish to take part in our webinars and so on, if you have something to say, also you can contact us. We will be glad. And at the end of this webinar, I want to get back to actually the aim of this event. We are trying to raise the money for the kids that suffer from war that are now in the special institution near Ivano-Frankivsk, and they actually need money to have pampers, all that stuff, clothes, I don't know, beds, and so on. So that if you have a chance, if you have a possibility, you can donate the money to the babies. All photos of how the money shall be spent will be on our website, and these kids, I think, will be really glad to you. Okay, that's the point.
I don't see any question as of now, so we can say our
Mhm.
goodbyes and see you next time, of course. Come back
Okay,
to us to see
yes,
us if you have
thank
any
you very much.
suggestions. If you have any suggestions for future webinars, you can drop us a line so we will start to include them in our plan. So it was great to see you again. See you next time. Bye.
Okay, yes, see you.
Stay safe.